Sports fans, we welcome you back to another installment of San Diego Prep Insider. We're joined by Point Loma head coach Joel Allen, somebody that normally we would love to have you on, coach, to goof around and do all of our shenanigans, but this needs to be a little bit more serious of a conversation. You wanted to address personally and directly what's going on right now with the Point Loma football program. You guys have decided that the rest of the season you will be forgoing the varsity level. It's hard to just read Twitter comments about this because it's not hearing it from the source on why this decision was made. We spoke at length about this decision, but you felt that it was still important to get out the message to everybody of this is a lot of layers here. This is safety of the players. This is health of the program. This is, for you guys as a coach, there's a lot to it. So I will just say the floor is yours. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, I appreciate you letting me do this. Luckily, I don't have Twitter, so that helps a little bit. But the reality is, this was hard. This was a difficult decision. It was not a decision that was taken lightly. It wasn't one that was also made in a silo. It's not like I didn't make this. I didn't just. This wasn't just me. I obviously talked to a lot of coaches. The coaching staff, all the coaches on the staff were on the coaching staff last year, and some of them for the last 15 years. And so, it's as being new, I wanted to take their opinions and see what they thought. And, there was a unanimous decision that this was for the best interest of the kids. We all coach football and, it's a physical sport. And one of the, and I from Bishops, I know what it's like to have 15 or 20 kids. And that's a difficult situation, but we got through it. But we were playing opponents that we felt like from a physicality standpoint, we were okay putting our kids out there on the field. And, some of the hardest things that's ever happened to me as a coach is seeing a kid go through a significant injury. That is really, really difficult. And it's something that, comes with the nature of the game. It's a physical game and things happen. And I think in all those situations over my 11 years, I was able to put my head on the pillow at nighttime and feel like, well, it was difficult. I wish it would not have happened. But the reality was it was unavoidable. It was unavoidable. And there was nothing as a coach or a coaching staff or a school we could have done to prevent something like that happening. And so as hard as it does allow you to kind of get up the next day and keep moving along. I think, having 22 kids and having sophomores that are playing offensive line and playing these incredibly talented schools, if something were to happen to any of those kids, including the seniors, I would have sat there and been like, man, I felt like I don't know how I would have slept at night. And, that was the really kind of the driving force of the decision. It wasn't about losing 64-0. We've lost many games in my coaching career. It really had to do with that specific situation. How could I look somebody in the eye and say, it was avoidable. And that's what it felt.
Well, I'll jump in there and I will say that for everybody in the comment section that I read that was, it's just one loss, buck up, get out there and straighten up. I think there is a lack of understanding of just how big the gap is between Lincoln, Madison, Saints Cathedral, and the vast majority of competition in the rest of San Diego. We'll argue Avo versus Western all we want, but there's a group of schools up at the top where if you are lining an average high school sophomore up against someone the size of Ross Masuli or of Grayson Halton or like anybody who is a Pac-12 committed linebacker, it's not productive, I would assume, to their learning of the football game. And like you said, it's not a physically safe equation. I can say personally, I am a 30-year-old man. I'm 5'11", 170, and I would not want to line up against Saints defense, no matter how much football I get to play against it. So to me, it feels like I will absolutely say, from an outsider's perspective, safety is the key thing. But you also felt like you might have been boxed in a little bit because you aren't necessarily scared of just playing football with your team. You would have been happy to play if you had been able to schedule a different, I don't want to necessarily say caliber, but a different physically sized opponent.
Yeah, and to comment on one of the things, the one thing I loved about our kids is they were ready for the challenge. We went on to that game in Lincoln, and the kids played hard for 4 quarters. We had some bumps and bruises and some kids that might be out a week or so, but nothing serious like that. And so I have to say that they are tough kids, and they were willing to do that, and I commend them for that. Yeah, unfortunately, the city conference has some rules in place that obviously when the decision to push the season back multiple times, and we found ourselves in this, hybrid season of the 4 games, the decision was made that everyone would play their league opponents. And typically in a 10-game season, for Point Loma, we have 4 difficult league games against Saints, Madison, Lincoln, and Cathedral, and we get 6 games to schedule ourselves against like opponents and find our groove and have some successes and have some failures and then move into the very tough league in which, hey, getting a win or playing competitively would be something to be really proud of, obviously. Given this short season, we were told that we're only going to play our league opponents, and then the conference has some conference rules that didn't allow us to essentially not play that schedule and to go find some other like opponents. And so what the rule was, and the way I understood it, was that if you forfeited or did not play a league opponent, you had to forfeit your varsity status. And also another city conference rule that was, I think, different from at least my experience in other conferences was that seniors couldn't play JV. And so we thought, oh, well, if we could just play, a JV schedule, we could go play some other like opponents, some teams with some sophomores and juniors, and take our, small group of seniors and play football. Obviously, that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to play football for these kids. It's what we all do. It's why I took the job. And some of those rules didn't allow us to do that.
I think you bring up an interesting distinction there, because the number 22 kids has been circulated around a lot, and that's not your full program, though. You have a freshman and a JV level that you have been working with so far this year. Is that correct, or have you just been doing JV?
Yeah, we're right around 40 kids, 42 kids. When I first got introduced as the head coach after the first, kind of meet and greet, there was over 85 kids that were there. That was back in August, September time, maybe September, November. And then we had about 40 of that being, I think, about 16, 17 freshmen, and then a group of sophomores and juniors and just seniors.
So you're already calling up kids to this varsity team that should have probably been getting freshman or JV reps anyway. And that's why I think this is an important distinction for people to understand. This is not your Bishop's team where you have 22, but it's a Notre Dame quarterback and an Ivy League lacrosse player and an Ivy League football player. And it's not 22 just elite talent. It's probably sounds like maybe 16 or 17 actually varsity ready kids and a couple others that you had to sprinkle in there just to round out the roster. So I do think that's a very interesting distinction, that you are not punting on the whole program. You have set up the lower levels to grow this. You just want to do it safely is the big message I feel like that you're trying to get out to everybody right now.
Yeah. And the kids are talented. I mean, this is not about a lack of talent. I thought our seniors are a great group of kids. There's some very talented juniors. There's some very talented freshmen and sophomores. It's just, hey, we were all at that game on, I was at that game on Friday night, and, it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't the 64-0 loss. It was, hey, we didn't move the ball. We were unfortunately, we weren't able to get a first down. That to me, from a coaching standpoint, we're trying to coach the game of football. We're trying to, teach these kids, how to play the game. You don't have to win every game, but you got to have some small victories and throughout a game to be able to go back on and say, hey, that was done well. Hey, this was a mistake. We got to get better. I think that, I look back at that game on Friday and go, yes, we played hard and that was amazing. I don't know if we, it didn't suit us well to get much better. There wasn't anything on film we thought we could, get those kids and make them better.
Coach, anything else that we have not gotten out that you feel like is important, you message wise, to get to San Diego, to your players, to your coaches, just to the fans that want to better understand what's going on?
Yeah. Just that I can't imagine, I can't imagine having, being in the middle of this already difficult time with online school and, it's kids that missed their spring sports last year. And then, for those senior boys, just was not an easy decision. It was probably the hardest thing I've ever done as a coach. I think it still, to me, as hard as it was, is easier to have that conversation than something happening, to a student athlete in a game when you as a coach and a staff don't feel that it is, an appropriate level of competition. So had an injury occurred, as difficult as this was one step easier than what I think could have been a more difficult conversation with a family or a parent if something, something was to happen on an unfortunate incident.
Coach, I really appreciate you stepping up and being willing to confront this head on. I can't even imagine being in your shoes right now. So I thank you for shedding some light on this. I think that in the end, a lot of people will thank you for keeping their kids safe, because ultimately your job as a high school football coach is not to launch NFL careers or to do anything football related. It's just to take care of kids, and it's to grow
Yeah.
and foster young men. And I will say that leadership is not always about making popular decisions. It's about making the right decisions. So I tip my hat to you for that. I say thank you very much for joining us, folks. Look, it's a weird year and weird things are going to happen. And you just got to understand that some of these people see the bigger picture and they feel like they have a good feel for their schools, where keyboard Twitter warriors might not. So coach, we thank you very much for joining us. And we will find ways to talk to you still between now and football. And we really appreciate you taking some of your time.